She handed me the invitation smiling and my name wasn't on it. I didn't gasp or ask questions. I folded the card once, slowly, as if I already understood something she didn't realize I knew. If you've ever been quietly pushed aside by someone who should have protected you, don't look away. This story starts with betrayal and ends in a way you won't expect. Stay with me until the very end. A thought settled in my chest, steady and cold. This wasn't a mistake. I had been expecting this moment longer than I wanted to admit. It was a Thursday afternoon just past 4. The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and lemon cleaner. Sunlight came in sharp through the blinds, catching dust in the air. She stood across from me, arms crossed, watching my face too carefully. That's when I noticed the envelope was heavier than it needed to be. Thick paper. Extra cards. A detail that would matter later. I read it again. Her 60th birthday. The date circled in blue ink. A list of names printed neatly inside. My siblings. Cousins. Friends from church. Even neighbors she barely tolerated. But not me. And not my child. The absence was loud. Intentional. Did you get enough made? She asked, nodding toward the casserole cooling on the counter, her voice light. Too light. She wasn't looking at the invitation now. She was pretending this was an ordinary visit, that we were two women sharing a normal afternoon. I did, I said. My mouth was dry. I set the card down between us. Looks like you're expecting a full house. She glanced at it, then away. A small smile tugged at her mouth, the kind she used when she felt justified. It's just close family, she said. People who understand traditions. That word landed wrong. Traditions. I thought about the years I had shown up early, stayed late, brought food, brought gifts, swallowed comments. I felt a tightness behind my eyes but didn't let it surface. I sat down instead. That surprised her. Outside, a car door slammed. Someone's radio played faintly down the street. Ordinary sounds, carrying on while something quiet and cruel unfolded inside her kitchen. You didn't think this through, I said, keeping my voice even. I wasn't accusing her. I was stating a fact. She sighed as if I were the difficult one. I did think it through, she replied. I prayed on it. That was another clue. She only said that when she wanted her decision to sound final. My fingers traced the edge of the table, feeling a nick in the wood I hadn't noticed before. Everything seemed sharper now. Clearer. I stood and walked to the sink, needing distance. The window above it showed my reflection. Older, yes, but steady. Capable. I had survived harder things than an invitation. She had no idea how much ground she was giving up in this moment. Behind me she kept talking. About family image. About choices. About how people talk. Each sentence was carefully shaped, rehearsed long before I arrived. That told me this had been planned. Not rushed. Not emotional. Planned. I turned back. So this was always the plan? I asked. You just waited until it was printed. Her eyes finally met mine. For a second something flickered there. Not guilt. Fear maybe. Or doubt. It passed quickly. I didn't think you'd react like this, she said. That almost made me laugh. I picked up the invitation again, feeling the weight of it in my hands. The heavy paper. The extra cards. The quiet confidence behind the exclusion. How did you think I'd react? I asked. She hesitated, and in that hesitation I felt the balance shift. My heartbeat slowed. A strange calm settled over me, the kind that comes right before a door closes for good. I realized she believed she still had control, that this moment would end with me quietly accepting my place. She didn't know I had already seen the full picture forming, piece by piece over years. The invitation was only proof. Proof that what I sensed for a long time was finally visible, printed in ink, impossible to deny. I waited, watching her gather herself, knowing whatever she said next would change everything between us. She took a breath and I prepared for impact. She took a breath and I waited, already braced for whatever shape her truth would take. I'm trying to protect the family, she said finally. Her voice softened, practiced. People talk. They always have. And I'm tired of explaining choices I don't agree with. The words settled between us like a thin layer of dust. Not explosive. Just revealing. I nodded once as if she were discussing weather. Inside, something old and tired shifted into place. Protection. Agreement. These were not new ideas. They were the rules she had lived by, spoken out loud at last. She moved to the stove and fussed with the casserole, tapping the spoon against the dish. The clink felt louder than it should have. You understand, she added, not looking at me. You've always been practical. I understood more than she knew. I watched how she kept her back turned, how she spoke in careful phrases that made judgment sound like responsibility. I realized then that this wasn't about a party. It was about permission. Who got it? Who never would? I asked her to say it plainly. What choice are you talking about? She exhaled through her nose. Raising a child alone, she said. It sends the wrong message. There was. Simple. Clean. No room for confusion. My shoulders tightened, then eased. I had spent years wondering if I had imagined her disapproval. I hadn't. He believed it. Owned it. Wrapped it in concern. I walked to the window again, pressing my palm to the cool glass. Outside, a delivery truck idled. Somewhere a dog barked. Life continued without commentary. And the message you're sending? I asked. By leaving us out? He turned, then eyes sharp. I'm not punishing you, she said. I'm drawing a line. That line ran straight through me. I thought of the times she had praised my siblings for staying married, even when they were miserable. Of the holidays where she asked me to sit quietly when questions came up. Of the silence that followed every small success I shared. This was the pattern finally named. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I didn't think you'd push back. I'm not pushing, I said. I'm listening. Her face flickered, something like surprise crossing it. She had expected tears. Bigger. Bargaining. Instead, I felt a strange clarity. If this was who she was choosing to be, then I could stop hoping she would become someone else. She reached for the invitation again, then pulled her hand back. You're still welcome to stop by before, she said. Just us. Oh, separate. Hidden. The conditions were always there. I saw them now, neat and tidy like rules on a printed card. I won't do that, I said. She frowned. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No, I replied. I'm making it honest. A clock ticked on the wall. I noticed the faint crack in the ceiling I'd never seen before. Time stretched, uncomfortable and thin. She looked at me as if waiting for the version of me she knew to return, the one who adjusted herself to keep the peace. I asked one last question. If I were still married, I said, would my name be there? She didn't answer right away. Her silence was careful. Measured. When she finally spoke, it was almost a whisper. That's not fair. But it was. And she knew it. I picked up my purse, feeling the familiar weight settle on my shoulder. Not heavy. Grounding. I moved toward the door, aware of how steady my steps felt. At the threshold, I turned back. You've told me who you are, I said. I hear you. Her mouth opened, then closed. She hadn't expected to be heard so clearly. As I stepped outside, the late light caught my eyes and I realized the sting there wasn't sadness. It was relief, sharp and unmistakable, cutting through years of doubt with something close to certainty. Behind me, I sensed her watching, recalculating, already rewriting the story she would tell others. I didn't turn around. Some doors close without sound, and the quiet afterward can be louder than any argument, lingering, unanswered, demanding reckoning later on. The quiet followed me home, settling in like a presence I couldn't shake. It wasn't the peaceful kind. It hummed. I noticed it as I set my keys down, as I slipped off my shoes, as I stood too long in the hallway without turning on the light. Her words echoed, not loudly but persistently. Not what she said, but how easily she said it. How certain she sounded. I realized then that something in me had finally stopped reaching. The next morning I didn't call her. That alone felt strange. For years I'd been the one to smooth things over, to check in, to make sure no silence grew uncomfortable. This time I let the phone sit. I made my coffee, darker than usual, and watched steam rise from the mug. My chest felt tight but not panicked. More like sore. As if a muscle I'd overused was finally resting. Days passed. Ordinary days. Grocery shopping. A doctor's appointment. Folding laundry while the radio murmured in the background. I noticed how often my thoughts drifted to whether I should update her, explain myself, soften what had happened. Each time I felt the urge and then let it go. That was new. Distance wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Intentional. She tested it within a week. A short message. Neutral. Asking about something small. I read it twice, my thumb hovering over the screen. In the past I would have replied right away, eager to prove I wasn't upset. Said I waited. Not to punish her. To see what it felt like to choose myself first. The answer surprised me. It felt steadier. Less frantic. When I did respond, I kept it simple. Polite. Brief. No extra warmth. No explanations. The space between us widened just enough for me to breathe. I could tell she felt it. Her replies grew sharper, then oddly sweet, as if testing which version of her still worked on me. At the store one afternoon I ran into someone she knew. A woman from her circle. She smiled too widely and asked questions that weren't really questions. How was my mother doing? Was I going to the big celebration? The tone was light, but the curiosity was sharp. I answered vaguely. Watched her expression shift. Information traveled fast in that world. I felt oddly calm knowing I was no longer managing it. At home I rearranged things. Small changes. I moved a chair closer to the window. Cleared a drawer I'd avoided for years. I found old cards from her tucked away. Praises followed by conditions. Love followed by warnings. Reading them now I felt something loosen. I hadn't imagined the pattern. I'd lived inside it. One evening she called. Her voice was careful. Almost gentle. You've been quiet, she said. I've been busy, I replied. It wasn't a lie. She paused, then said my name the way she always did when she wanted closeness without accountability. I felt my shoulders tense, then settle. I didn't rush to fill the silence. Eventually she did. She talked about herself. About the plans. About people I hadn't seen in years. I listened without leaning in. You seem distant, she said finally. I am, I said, surprising both of us with the honesty. She laughed lightly as if I'd made a joke. You'll come around. That certainty told me everything. She believed distance was temporary. A phase. Something I'd tire of before she did. I ended the call soon after, my heart beating fast but steady. I wasn't angry. I was awake. That night, lying in bed, I felt the weight of years pressing gently, then lifting. I thought about how much energy I'd spent trying to be understood by someone invested in misunderstanding me. Distance wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. In the days that followed, I noticed how my body responded. Less tension in my jaw. Better sleep. A quiet confidence growing, unfamiliar but welcome. I wasn't cutting her off. I was stepping back. Creating space she could no longer cross without noticing. She didn't know it yet, but the roles had shifted. I was no longer chasing the version of love she offered. I was learning what it meant to live without reaching for it at all. And that realization carried a power she hadn't accounted for, one that would surface soon enough. She hadn't accounted for that power surfacing soon enough, and I felt it the moment I saw her across the room. It was a community hall on a Saturday afternoon, folding chairs lined in uneven rows, the air smelling faintly of coffee and old wood. I hadn't known she would be there. That was the first surprise. The second was how still I felt when our eyes met. No rush of heat. No need to turn away. Just a steady awareness that something had shifted. She recovered first. She always did. Her smile appeared, practiced and quick, and she moved toward me as if nothing had changed. I noticed how her steps slowed when she got closer, as though she were recalculating. I stood my ground, hands relaxed at my sides, listening to the low murmur of voices around us. I didn't expect to see you, she said. Neither did I replied. There was a pause, small but telling. People passed behind her, carrying trays, laughing softly. She gestured to an empty chair, an old habit resurfacing. I didn't sit. That seemed to unsettle her more than any sharp word could have. She asked about my drive, about the weather, about things that filled space without touching meaning. I answered politely, briefly. With every exchange I felt her searching for the version of me that used to lean in, to reassure. That version stayed quiet. Someone she knew approached us, greeting her warmly, then turning to me with curiosity. I watched my mother straighten, her voice shifting into performance. She introduced me carefully, leaving out details she once emphasized. I saw the calculation in real time. What to reveal? What to hide? The moment passed, but it left a mark. When we were alone again, she sighed. You seem different, she said, almost accusing. I feel different, I answered. She studied my face as if expecting a crack. Finding none, she crossed her arms. I was hoping we could talk, she said. We are talking, I replied. That wasn't what she meant. She wanted privacy. control. A space where her words carried weight. Instead, we stood in plain sight, the hum of ordinary life pressing in. I could tell she felt exposed even if she couldn't name why. She lowered her voice. I didn't mean for things to go the way they did. I waited. Silence has a way of inviting truth. She shifted again, discomfort flickering across her face. Around us, chairs scraped, cups clinked. No one noticed us standing there, balanced on something fragile. I did what I thought was best, she continued. For who? I asked. The question landed heavier than I expected. She looked away, jaw tightening. In that moment, I understood something new. She wasn't surprised by my distance anymore. She was surprised by my composure. By the fact that I wasn't asking to be let back in. A woman called her name from across the room. She hesitated, torn between attention and urgency. We'll finish this later, she said. Maybe, I answered. She walked off, shoulders tense. I remained where I was, feeling the floor solid beneath my feet. People smiled at me, unaware of the quiet reckoning unfolding. I realized then that this reunion wasn't about reconnection. It was about recognition. As the afternoon wore on, she glanced at me often. Each look carried a question she didn't ask. How much had I changed? What did I know now? I didn't give her answers. I didn't need to. My calm had already introduced doubt into a certainty she'd relied on for years. When it was time to leave, we passed each other again. This time she touched my arm lightly, a gesture meant to remind me of history. I met her eyes. Held them. Something unspoken moved between us, fragile and unresolved. I walked out into the late light, heart steady, aware that this unexpected reunion had done more than reopen old wounds. It had confirmed something essential. The ground between us was no longer hers to define, and she felt it, even if she wasn't ready to admit what that would mean next. The understanding lingered, unfinished, waiting, heavy, undeniable, shared. The understanding lingered, unfinished, waiting, heavy, undeniable, shared, and she finally spoke my name again. Not loudly. Not sharply. Just enough to pull me back a step, as if she believed a single word still carried authority. I turned. She stood near the doorway, light cutting across her face, her expression no longer certain. People were leaving. Chairs stacked. The room felt emptied of witnesses, which was exactly what she wanted. I don't want this to end badly, she said. I studied her for a moment. Really studied her. The careful posture. The tight mouth. The fear tucked beneath control. That depends, I replied, on what you think ending badly looks like. She looked down, then back up. I never meant to lose you. That was the truth she chose, and it told me everything. Losing me was her concern. Not how she treated me. Not what she withheld. Only the outcome that inconvenienced her. I felt no anger hearing it. Just clarity. I wasn't lost, I said. I was standing right where you left me. Her breath caught. She stepped closer, lowering her voice as if volume could soften meaning. I did what I thought was right. I had to think about the family. The family you approve of, I said gently. She flinched. That was new. I realized then what the real twist was. She hadn't expected consequences. Not real ones. She thought silence was temporary, distance negotiable. She never imagined I would choose permanence. I raced you better than this, she said, reaching for ground she understood. You raced me to survive, I answered. And I did. The words settled between us, solid and final. I felt my hands relax at my sides. My body knew before my mind finished the thought. This was the moment. Not dramatic. Not loud. Complete. She tried one last time. You don't have to shut me out. I didn't, I said. I stepped back. You decided what that meant. Her eyes filled then. Real tears. Not strategic. Not practiced. I watched them fall without moving to stop them. That was the reversal. She was finally feeling what I had carried quietly for years. I just wanted things to look right, she whispered. I wanted them to be right, I replied. We stood there, the gap between us no longer bridged by expectation. I saw with startling calm that nothing more needed to be said. The truth was already standing, fully formed, impossible to fold away like an invitation. I picked up my coat. He watched me, searching for something to hold on to. I felt compassion, but it no longer came with sacrifice attached. For the first time, I understood that love without dignity was never love at all. Only endurance disguised as loyalty, something I no longer owed anyone. "Take care of yourself," she said. "I am," I answered. Outside, the evening air was cool and clean. The sky held that deepening blue that comes just before night settles in. I stood for a moment on the steps, breathing, feeling my weight return to my feet. No shaking. No doubt. I thought about all the years I tried to earn a place that should have been given freely, and how quietly that effort had shaped me. Letting go felt less like loss and more like setting something heavy down after a long walk. I allowed myself one final breath of that moment, knowing it marked an ending and a beginning I would not explain or defend to anyone ever again. I walked to my car and paused, hand on the door. Behind me, the building glowed softly, full of people and stories I no longer needed to manage. I understood then that revenge didn't arrive as punishment. It arrived as freedom. I drove home without rushing. The road was familiar. The radio low. My thoughts steady. I wasn't grieving what I lost. I was honoring what I kept. That night I slept deeply. No replaying conversations. No rehearsing endings. Just rest. In the morning, sunlight filled my kitchen. I made coffee and stood by the window, alone and unafraid. I hadn't won by being chosen. I won by choosing myself. If this story spoke to you, you're not alone. Subscribe for more real, emotional stories about betrayal, strength, and quiet revenge. Because some truths are only found when we finally choose ourselves.